Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the Daily Market Insight for Tuesday, the 18th of April. All right, our sort of potential long-term sell-off in the dollar, pretty short-lived, and it's a bit of an end of the week, end of the major data cycle. You know, we're into the third week of the month, and then you got obviously the fourth week. Less important data coming out. We've got to wait now for the Fed to tell us what's going to happen in May. A 0.25% hike is still factored in. It could be the last hike, and then that's it. If that happens, then we might see the dollar drift off. But right now, the focus has sort of switched to, you know, the earnings season. Okay, we've got lots of data coming out here across the board with some major companies, and this really relates back to the whole banking crisis, right? So just looking at tomorrow, we've got just have a look at the bigger banks and institutions, Mellon, Goldie's, Bank of America. But more importantly, even the little banks, right? You want to see how they're performing as far as the earnings per share estimate goes. So if you scroll down, you'll see a whole heap of them. This could have a big impact on the equity markets. I don't think it's going to change the what's happening with the Fed, but worth an opportunity, worth a look. Netflix last time I recall was a huge trading opportunity. It might have been like a year ago, actually, not like the last quarter's data. But just keep an eye on this as we go forward. You've also got, I think Tesla's out this week as well. I just flicked that over. Yeah, there it is at the top. So you've got some major heavy capitalized companies here coming out with their earnings, and that can have a potential to really shift the stock indices. All right. Now, just looking at the calendar, right? We're in the third week. Now, just don't get too caught up in every data release. Think of the bigger picture. And right now, I mean, China is a bit of a focus. Okay, so that could have an impact on the Aussie and Kiwi in particular, maybe worth having a look. But the UK employment numbers, right? The employment numbers for me, what I've seen is we're still seeing really good employment numbers, and they aren't, it's just discombobulation. The real trend is coming from the inflation numbers. So to me, I'll have a look at that, but I'm not planning on trading it unless there's something really bizarre happening. So don't get caught up in numbers that are a little bit convoluted. And what I mean by that is there's 5 or 6 different components to the release. Inflation numbers, right? This is something you can hang your hat on. We've got Canadian inflation numbers, obviously very important. Now, the central banks are sitting back watching what's happening at the moment, and most of the inflation numbers are sort of working quite well. Like we are expecting, once again, a big sort of shift lower in the Canadian inflation numbers. Doesn't mean they're going to be cutting rates, but it tells us a lot about the cycle, the hiking cycle and where we're at. Then you come back down here, you've got UK inflation, much better number to look at than the employment numbers. And that comes with the retail price index and the PPI as well. But once again, inflation is the key component here. If I go down a little bit further, well, you got some inflation numbers there out of the Eurozone as well. Now, no one's really had a big interest in the Eurozone numbers. It's usually the German numbers. But I tell you what, the Eurozone numbers have moved it around before, so keep an eye on that. And don't forget the flightless bird, okay, the Kiwi, right? Inflation numbers here. This is a tiny economy. They've raised rates aggressively. I'd be very interested to see what's happening here. It's a small currency, doesn't have a huge amount of liquidity, but you can get some great moves, and that's well worth keeping a close eye on. Okay, so the Kiwi inflation numbers there. And coming back down into Friday, I tell you what, out of all the inflation numbers, I won't be holding my breath for the Japanese inflation numbers. But you know what? If you're trading the Asian session, you might as well tune in. UK retail sales Friday, you know, it's a last batch. This is a big week for sterling, if you haven't already sort of identified it. And Canadian retail sales figures there as well is the sort of second component to the Canadian data this week. Okay, inflation numbers, and then later in the week, retail sales. So we get a really good picture of if the Bank of Canada's policies are working, right? So inflation, there's lots of numbers out here, and you can sit in front of the screens and trade as much as you like, but you've really got to pay attention to which ones may impact price movements, and that's where you need to focus your attention. All right, so that's my take on the calendar. The earnings calendar, obviously hugely important for individual stocks, but also for stock indices as well. So keep an eye on that. And this is like game time, right? This is sport for the North American traders. Trading the stocks is their bread and butter. It's what everyone was brought up on. So this is where the major activity is going to be. And you're watching the earnings sort of estimate and then the reported earnings per share. Okay, get an idea. Obviously, if the reported earnings are sort of lower than the estimate, well, then you're looking for generally a move to the downside in the stock. So that's where we are with the currencies, with the now with the whole US dollar weak picture, right? It has been put aside. So at the moment, you're seeing a little shift up in the equity markets. Is that translating across the board? Not really, right? And if I just show you the currencies, I'm sort of conscious of the time here. I want to keep you guys here for longer than you need to be. Let me get on the screen too. Okay, so with the major currency pairs, okay, don't get so caught up in the whole move. The opportunity here on euro, okay, look great. Hasn't worked out. You get this is the support line here, 109.50, and we're now back at support. It's a real big clean out to the downside. Now, to me, you got to reassess and go, okay, well, what's going on here? Why did this not work out? We know there's no significant data. Obviously, the inflation numbers are coming out, but the Fed looks like everyone's waiting for the Fed, right? And it sort of can piss you off a bit. Don't let the emotional side of trading beat you up. All right. So just wait for the opportunities to sort of build again. If anything, it's a big shift down, and the whole market has been stitched up. So don't think if you were getting long euro there that you're the old Robinson Crusoe on your own, but because you're not. So what we're going to do is just sort of piece it together. Is the dollar going to continue higher? I don't think so. Not until we see significant changes in the data. Equity markets could have an impact for sure. But to me, this is a chance to reload and get into some of these trading opportunities. Like if you had told me Friday that euro is going to be back down at 109 sort of 30, I'd think you're crazy, right? And here we are. So don't sort of fall in love with it and go, you know what, I'm just going to get long again because it should go up. Let's think about it, right? We're going to have opportunities to get into these currencies. If anything, we're seeing a bit of a discombobulation across most instruments. Okay, the dollar yen a little bit higher, and oil, well, it's come back a few bucks. That should push dollar CAD a little bit higher there as well. Outside of that, there's nothing you can do. And this is the sort of the dysfunctional part of the financial markets, is trying to work out, like, where's the consistency here with the numbers and the data? Well, it's a living organism, right? So when you're looking at the market, there is a big focus on stocks. Investors await earnings report. We're waiting for clues from the Fed, okay? Any Fed officials coming out could be a clue, but we're waiting really for a couple of weeks, right? So if you're thinking, well, we're going to wait for clear direction on the US dollar, if you're trading the currencies, well, we may have a couple of weeks to sort of wait. We may see the currency sort of wash around a bit, or you can go a little bit hardcore and get into the some of these stock releases and see what happens on that front. But you know what? The third week of the month, there is a lot of data coming out. There's no need to rush in and sort of beat yourself up. As I said, wait for the key releases that you have some sort of idea what's going on technically with the instruments as well as the fundamental picture. And actually, don't forget Thursday, loads of crude data coming out there as well for oil. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, obviously OPEC just controlling supplies, just putting the price where they want to, but that's another discussion. All right, so that's it for me. For mine, I'll be sort of having a bit of a look today, the Asian data, to see what's going on there. But the fact that the Aussie and Kiwi aren't really sort of behaving that well, really puts a kibosh on the whole opportunity. UK employment numbers today. Okay, you can have a crack if you feel like it, but to me, it's a tricky one. Inflation numbers later in the week are much worth the look. And don't forget the ZEW, the ZEW economic sentiment numbers out of Germany. All right, guys, that's it from me. It's almost like a bit of a tricky week, and I think Greg mentioned it in the trade zone here. If I just get that up. So just having a look in the Discord channel, could be a quite loose trading week. Okay, so sentiment is going to come from lesser US data. Greg, you're spot on there. That is absolutely true. Identifying that at the start of the week saves you a lot of heartache, saves you a lot of time just staring at the screens, wondering what's going to happen, but a lot of heartache of putting trades into sort of situations that technically look great, but fundamentally are discombobulating. All right. This is the hard part about trading. Turn off, remain disciplined. Don't let the markets control you. Okay, for me, small losing trade Friday. Who cares? Let's look for the next trade. And right now, can't see it just at the moment. We've just seen a flush out. Just to finish up on that, we've just seen a flush out across the board, right? It's no time to rush in. But I tell you what, if you didn't have a trade on and you saw these instruments move to where they are, you'd be sort of starting to get a bit frothy, right? Excited. And for those interested, first time I've seen gold break down and the cryptos, the safe haven trade, right? And dollar yen, the dollar's higher, the yen's given back some cash. You know what? Looks like the market is actually starting to offload some safe haven dollars. All right. So just keep an eye on that as well. All right, guys, that's it from me. A little bit long-winded, I know, but just trying to fill in all the gaps. And actually, just one thing I just saw there, just keep an eye on any of these central bank minutes. Okay, we've got the RBA today, worth a look. Okay, see what they're thinking. What's the big picture here? What was happening in the meeting? Was there discussions about leaving rates on hold permanently, cutting rates? What are they thinking? Worth a look there as well if you're in the Australasian session. All right, guys, have a good one. All the best. Cheerio.